Today's episode of Still Untitled is sponsored by Autodesk Graphic. Graphic is a full-featured app for making icons, illustrations, UI and UX, or anything else you need out of a professional vector design app. Open, edit, and save raster or vector images, layered Photoshop or Illustrator files, CSS, SVG, PDF, and just about any other file format you can think of. You can open an AI file and export a clean CSS code or a web-ready SVG with just a few clicks. It's available on your Mac, phone, and iPad, so you can design without compromise on the go. It's the vector design app you've been waiting for your iPad Pro and Apple Pencil. Visit graphic.com to learn more about Autodesk Graphic or find it in the App Store.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Norm.
Hey!
Whoa, wait a minute.
Wait, where's
is this the lineup?
this isn't the right people. What the hell are you guys doing here?
It has been
A month, maybe?
It's been a month. I have been gone for almost 24 days.
Yeah, the last episode that I think you and I were both on, we recorded weeks before that episode actually aired.
No, we recorded a couple of days before your wedding, didn't we?
Yes.
No,
Like the week of your wedding.
That's
on
a month
Monday.
ago.
Right.
Wow, that was a month ago?
Yeah,
month ago.
that was a month ago because right after we recorded that, I went down south to do some videos.
Yep. That's right.
In the Central Valley.
Okay.
That will show up on Tested later. And then I was back here for 16 hours for Norm's amazing, beautiful, lyrical, wonderful wedding.
It was absolutely lovely, Norm. You guys did an amazing job, and I like that. That was a big production. There were costume changes.
And let me just say, just for the public's edification, like Norm as somebody who has a clear idea about what he wants and how he wants to do something. Your wedding exemplified that in every way. You and Danica had your touch on every little aspect, and it wasn't like it felt completely homegrown. It's like, when you go to your good friend's house and they've done a centerpiece on the table for the dinner party that's really lovely. The wedding was like that for 150 people.
And
208. Oh my God.
Oh wow, really? Yeah. And like every single person that I talked to, I didn't get to talk to a lot of people because I was chasing my daughter a lot. But every single person I talked to that was there was interesting, and I had a bunch of lovely conversations with people, which is really like that's the best you can hope for.
Oh my goodness! I had one of the most stimulating dinner conversations with Rick Prellinger. You sat him next to me. Thank you. That was lovely. Yeah. We had a lot of fun, and I knew his wife because she had presented at EG.
At the show,
EG, and also our
live show last year. Yeah.
And so that was awesome. I just loved her work. And
you were right. The best part is the arranging of the tables.
Am I right?
That's absolutely the only fun part I had was the social experiments.
Did you get to enjoy yourself at all? At the wedding?
It.
You don't remember
it?
That's the trick. You never remember it.
See, Gina and I eloped. So we went to an island someplace because we hadn't been on vacation in 20 years. And we're just like, let's just spend this money on a vacation instead of our...
That's a good vacation.
Yeah, it was a good vacation.
We arranged, my wife and I arranged our wedding tables. And we have a marriage and a baby. As a result of our table arranging.
Oh, that's awesome.
We sat most of the single band members with our single female friends at a table, and my great friend Evany and Marco now have a beautiful son. And
that's on you.
And
if he turns out
every
to be
year
evil.
On our anniversary, she texts me and says, "Happy anniversary," because this is the anniversary of me meeting my husband.
Wow.
Did you? We were at the new parents' table, I think.
Yes,
I
definitely.
I could walk around and there were
table.
themes per table.
Yep.
I noticed.
Yep.
And we had some really fascinating, good tips shared all around.
That's great. That's great. Speaking of new parents, I was having a flashback to being a parent because someone here in the Mission took a crap out in front of my shop and wiped their nethers with some paper that's still right out front.
Isn't
wow.
that
so? I get to put on a level 5 hazmat suit to go take care of
everybody
it.
poops at him.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome
Thank
home.
you.
Welcome home.
Back to the Mission.
Yeah.
They don't have that in Toronto, do they?
No.
Or in the high Arctic.
No. You know what? I saw some homeless people, some nut jobs in Toronto.
Yeah,
it's true. They were there. They were there.
Okay.
So first of all, thank you, Will, for taking the reins of the podcast.
It was fun. I loved the feedback.
Yes.
Was all great. Everybody loved everything that we did while you guys were gone. I think we should bring Tom back as a regular member of the cast whenever he's in San Francisco. Because, I feel like YouTube could really use some more art.
Yes, indeed. It was very fun to watch all that happening from the road. And from the road, I just endured the most energetic road trip I have ever undergone.
So,
Like, I've traveled for longer, but I
Yeah.
have not traveled more in a compressed space of time.
And you meant actually on the road, a real driving across country
So
road trip.
just let me go through this as quickly as possible. My sons and I, the day after your wedding, left to drive Thing 1 to boarding school. He is off to the East Coast to a wonderful boarding school. And it's not like he's in trouble. He literally figured out that this was what he wanted to do to kind of open up what he thought was possible in his life. And we found this amazing place, and we drove him there. So we left San Francisco. On the first night, we made it to Boise.
wow, you went
That's-
that way. Oh, because it's summertime when you left.
Yeah.
Now it's
That's
fall.
a long drive.
It is.
One day to
One day to Boise. So it was 80 out to Winnemucca, and then north,
Oh.
and then across to Boise.
It's like 12, 13 hours?
No, it was
10?
not that bad. It was about 9 solid hours of driving.
All right,
Really? Boise's the same distance as Portland?
and Vegas?
It
Vegas is 11.
it wasn't. I have to think. We might have been on the road for 11 hours, but
Okay.
the actual driving was like 9 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a big drive.
It was, but
I did
we
that yesterday
wanted
by
to get the
myself.
hell
I
out
know,
of
I'm
Dodge.
just saying, you know.
Then we went to Sun Valley. We did Jackson Hole. We were going to do Yellowstone, but the wildfires kept us out. We did Jackson Hole, amazing, beautiful place. Then we did Devil's Tower, Black Hills, Craters of the Moon, not all in this order, Mount Rushmore. We did Devil's Tower, Mount Rushmore on the day that was the 100th anniversary of the national parks.
Oh, my God. That's awesome.
Which was fantastic.
So Devil's Tower, I think we have to talk about Close Encounters at a different time.
Yes.
Because after you sent me those pictures and there was this text chain that went back and forth when you asked Tom to come be on the podcast with me, where we were talking about Devil's Tower, and I was like, man, I haven't watched Close Encounters since it was on ABC when I was a kid.
Oh.
And so I went and bought the Blu-ray, and it's in my queue to rewatch
It's
now.
remarkable. It's remarkable how much that film holds up. The opening pre-credit salvo of the air traffic controllers talking about a UFO is still one of my favorite movie openings ever.
I'm excited to rewatch it.
So
Gina's in too.
the places you stopped at, how much preparation? And I assume it was just you and the kids.
It was me and Thing 1 and Thing 2, just the three of us in a rental car. We rented a car so that I could drop it off. It's a long,
One way.
And then fly back.
yeah,
Yeah.
so, I didn't have time to drive back.
I mean, it was a road trip with a purpose, and you wanted to take your time with it.
Yeah, so we took 10 days to make the journey. We ended up effectively mirroring a trip that Julia, my wife, had done when she drove back from Chicago about 20 years ago. She had hit all of these places and had things to say about each one, and she was totally right. It was a great route to take. We bypassed Nebraska entirely.
Oklahoma's bad too. Nothing personal, Oklahoma.
The second big drive was hightailing it from Mount Rushmore all the way to Minneapolis. That was another long.
No, that's one of those
long
ones
drive.
that looks like it's like 3 inches on the map, but I assume it's about 1,000 miles, or 800 miles, something.
Yeah, it was almost as long as San Francisco to Boise, if not slightly longer.
It's a lot of Middle America.
It's a lot of Middle America. And let me say this about Middle America. What a gorgeous country we live in.
That is absolutely the thing.
It is astounding. Like everywhere you go, you're in a valley, you're in a river valley, you're in big sky country, you're seeing farms, you're seeing towns. I found that for the most part, as long as you were far away from a city, drivers were awesome. People, they stayed in the slow lane unless they were passing. They got out of your way if you wanted to go faster, but I would just park in the slow lane with cruise control on for hours. It was fabulous.
I just got back from Portland and did the drive up 5.
Yeah.
And it's a big drive. It's like 9.5 hours. But 5, once you got past Sacramento and until you got to like Eugene, probably in Oregon, 5 was the best. It's the best
beautiful.
drive.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Driving through Shasta is unbelievable. And even with the lakes down, there's still snow on the mountain, and you get to it was just so pretty.
And we took routes out of both Jackson Hole and out of Sun Valley that took us on like 20-mile dirt roads to get out of those valleys.
wow.
That was so much fun. And it was really like slow and lugubrious, didn't see another car. In Jackson, in Sun Valley, which is a big ski town, we took the We took the gondola and the
Funicular,
chairlift to the top of one of the mountains that still
Oh.
operates in the summer, which is absolutely terrifying. To
An
sit in a
old gondola.
chairlift over the there's
the
no snow on the
yeah,
ground,
yeah.
so it doesn't look like anything will break your fall, and there's nothing but that rack in front of you. I'm not a big skier, so I'm not used to chairlifts.
The chairlift in general, like you're usually by the time you get on the chairlift, you're really, really tired, and you're like, well, at least the chairlift will give me like 10 minutes to kind of relax, and you always feel like I don't take my phone out on the chairlift. I don't see people on the phone, and you're like, I don't no, this is a bad idea.
Oh, and
And we got like, it was like, oh man, this is high. And then we got to the top and realized, oh, after lunch we're gonna have to go back down. And then you're looking at the
Oh my God, writing down is so much worse. Like
I don't know how they get away with liabilities on those things.
Here's
Have you ever
why.
been stuck on a chairlift?
I have not,
Oh, it's
but
awful.
when we did a shoot and Telluride, and I was thinking to myself, how is it possible that this gets past liability insurance? It's because it's a rich people hobby.
Yeah.
Rich people make sure that it's okay.
I know there's
That's
a-
exactly. I mean, I'm sure that's precisely why it happened.
There's a horror film about getting stuck on a chairlift, but it's happened to me in middle school.
36 Hours is what the movie's called, isn't it? Something like that.
Oh my God, really?
There is some
were
horror movie
stuck,
where
like overnight they got. Well, there's a documentary in addition to the horror movie where people got stuck on the chairlift overnight, and like they stopped it with the people still on because they missed the count.
when you're on exactly.
Yeah.
It's happened.
And
it
so
happens
they're like
all the
screaming
time.
and no one hears
There's
them.
nobody there. Well,
Well, without cell phones back in middle
Right,
school in
right.
the 90s, it's time slows down when you're on the chairlift.
Yeah.
And I'm there with someone else, and you're making the decision who has to jump.
Oh wow, you were
But
actually
there were a
making
bunch of
that
you could see other people further up and down the chairlift.
Lights
no?
went off.
Oh boy,
Yeah. It was evening skiing.
I've never
in
had that
Tahoe.
one.
Did you make that call?
Yes, my buddy jumped.
Whoa!
Did
he
not break
jumped?
his leg.
No.
Did not break his
How
leg.
far did he fall? Like 20 feet?
I think it was more than 20 feet.
Whoa!
Did he like
dude.
dangle by his
on.
hands and then drop?
Yep. It's the hold on.
In ski boots.
You take off ski boots.
Okay.
You take off your gear.
Did
Hold
you
on.
know the procedure for this?
No, we just talked it through.
How
Talk
did you
it through.
how did you convince a man?
It was
Man, I'm
It
so
was
glad I didn't go to
literally-
the
it was-
Arctic.
it was
with you.
short straw.
It turns out Norm's social engineering is,
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
have to outrun the tiger.
Right.
I only have
Right.
to outrun you.
no cell phones. You need to get there. No, we're gonna sleep there.
Oh.
It's
Amazing.
Wow.
hold down.
So how did it come
drag.
that it was him that jumped?
It was Rochambeau.
Oh,
It was literally.
Don't ever
Rochambeau.
Rochambeau with Norm. He's
Yeah.
really good too.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
yeah.
the deal was, if something happened, then I would also make
Yeah.
the jump.
Oh, like if he broke his leg,
Yes.
you'd take your shot
Yes,
too.
absolutely.
and then you're both
Yeah.
lying at the bottom.
We're
of
on
the-
top of each
I would
other.
have stayed. I don't know. No, you're
You get really
exposed.
cold.
You would get really cold.
You get really, really cold
Yeah.
up there.
You'd have to
yeah.
you'd have to take off all your clothes, make zip the jackets together, and make like a big sleeping bag out of them, and
Oh my
huddle
God.
together for warmth.
There's not a lot of space on those.
No.
They're made to be the people
yeah.
movers.
Yeah.
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 Oh my God, Norm, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So
but-
were people like mountain biking down the mountain and stuff?
No.
Oh, it's not that kind of boat. Because
No.
at Whistler now in the summertime, you go up there and it's like a mountain
no,
biking.
we did that
Okay.
with the boys a few years ago. And there is mountain biking all around. It just wasn't down the mountain we were on. There were some people on tracks we could see from a few of the vantage
Okay.
points. By the way, I just want to point out this is not a butt plug. This is
Wait,
Don't,
what?
Adam, don't read the comments.
I read
Don't-
the comments.
Wait.
Don't read
the
the
first thing I
comments.
saw when I look, that's clearly a
It's
hazard
clearly a
cone.
mini
Yeah.
traffic
You
cone.
would
Yes.
if that
Clearly.
that is
This is-
anatomically
when I went and did the
inappropriate
shoots,
for that use.
when I went and did these tested shoots in the Central Valley, I came back with two awesome bits of swag. One was this awesome, tiny, hilarious traffic cone.
The butt
that
plug.
made me feel like a giant. It's not a butt plug.
All it needs is a white stripe. That's what it needs. A white stripe around it.
Oh, yeah.
And
And-
then you would recognize it.
And this child-sized crash test
the
dummy.
nightmare
I
crash
saw that. I
test
didn't
dummy.
know what that was.
Is that
Oh.
totally amazing?
It's really creepy.
Yeah, that's a
Happy
hybrid
face.
It's a
Yeah.
hybrid 3. I think 3-year-old
He
crash
has like
test dummy.
he has like a Mona Lisa. She has a Mona Lisa smile.
Yeah, totally.
Kind of the.
That's like the Tyler Durden Hindu cow smile. Like,
Oh yeah, everything's cool. Okay, so
we did all of those national parks, and I said this on Twitter, and I really want to say it was not pandering at all to our national park system. I have never met a group of people more enthused about their jobs than the employees of the national parks. Every gatekeeper, every ranger, every person I talked to was so awesome, so informational, so helpful, and Mount Rushmore is an architectural masterpiece. Not just the carved faces, but also the mid-century modern archway you walk through with all the flags of the world and the cafeteria. It's gorgeous, just totally stunning.
I've only been on the South Road. I've only gone across 40 because I'm usually coming or going to
40.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
And 40 is great. And you get to go to the Grand Canyon if you want to drive a couple hours extra. And there's like things like Meteor Crater, but it's not like this route that you went. I think if you're talking about kind of the Big 10 national parks.
Oh, yeah.
Yellowstone, Mount Rushmore, Devil's Tower,
Black Hills
are all
Badlands. Yeah.
Oh, Badlands.
Yeah.
Oh, God, Badlands are all real high on the list of natural wonders of North America, right?
So we took some time in each place. We did not dawdle for whole days to do hiking and stuff. We got ourselves to Minneapolis, where we had a lovely dinner with my Riff Tracks friends. Some smoked meat at Kevin Murphy's house. It was delicious. Then we went down to Chicago, where we spent a couple of days with my friends Kim and Clark and some other friends.
Chicago's lovely, isn't it?
I love Chicago. I love Chicago even when it's balls hot.
I like Chicago. I've only ever been in the winter, and it's still awesome.
And then at Chicago was where Thing 2 peeled off and flew back home because he had to start school.
Okay.
And then Thing 1 and I went on to Detroit. We went to Detroit. We got to visit Third Man Records and see they still haven't installed the machines. Their record plant is still
still in
moving
Nashville
forward.
or something, right?
Well, there's a Third Man Records in Nashville. They've opened one in the Cass District in Detroit.
Oh, okay.
And it is sitting on this wonderful little block next to a Filson's and a Shinola store.
Oh, wow.
And
The watch store. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, but watches, bags, bikes, everything, and all of it's made in Detroit. And this wonderful guy from Shinola came up to me and said, "Hey, Adam, we're fans. Do you want to drive a few blocks away?" And gave me a tour of the entire Shinola factory.
Oh,
Dude.
wonderful.
And he takes me to this building. Of course, you're in
man.
Detroit. You're in historic, legendary Detroit, where he's like, "This is the building where the automatic transmission was invented."
The Dynaflow?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was really amazing. So we got to see,
Might not be the Dynaflow.
this is 600 employees all making bags and wallets and beautiful things. And I saw the watch assembly. We got there after hours, so most of the place was cleared out. But we saw where they were assembling watches. I mean, the beautiful, beautiful material and products coming out of Shinola.
Norm covered those years ago on Tested.
They're beautiful.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Want one.
It was really, really fun. Then
Did you go see Thomas Edison's Last Breath while you were in Detroit?
I did not.
But it's the centerpiece of Detroit culture.
In a jar.
They're just waiting for him to. Is he dead
Yes.
yet? Okay, push down on his chest.
Then we had a funny hiccup, which was that I had a corporate gig in Vegas. So I had to leave Detroit, fly to Vegas, while my son flew to Boston and met up with my mom for a couple of days.
Okay.
I went to Vegas, did my gig, which was fantastic and a wonderful audience. And then it turned out that Sarah Parsek, my friend who is the space archaeologist, she's the right. She happened to be doing a gig there too, so we had a lovely dinner.
Oh, cool.
And then I went to the airport, got in a plane, flew a red eye to Boston, met up with Thing 1. We hung out in Boston for a couple days. I saw my friend Adam Foss, and we had a lovely dinner. And then we drove him up to his boarding school.
Wow.
And then I flew to Toronto for a week.
So
Wait, so
hold on.
the road trip, that was 10 days right there that you
that
talked
was
about.
10 days, which I just described.
Question, how did you guys document it? Was it
We
just
took tons and tons
phones?
of photos, which I tweeted
been
and
tweeting a
Instagram
bunch,
the
yeah.
whole way.
Yeah.
I was very good about sending back bunches of pictures for tweeting out as I was going. We didn't want to tell people exactly where I was going, or where, so we did it about a day delayed.
What's
I also bought one of those huge Rand McNally maps of the entire country with all the highways, and I traced our route.
Can we get a picture of that?
Yeah,
maybe?
absolutely. Yeah, it's really cool.
Dude, that's the whole analog feel. Like the road trip it feels like it's like a dying art, and I don't know how many people do it. It used to be the rite of passage, cross the country, get a car, drive across the country, and now I think Rick Plinger actually has a film about this, where his thesis is the drive cross country across America is now more of a drive into America, even if you're actually crossing it.
It really is, because it's hard to overestimate how beautiful this country, any place where you're really driving long enough to feel differences in the undulations of the terrain, coming out of the Rockies, going through the river valleys, going into big sky country, going into sedimentary rock formations, and
driving through Kansas and seeing the Rockies grow up in front of you.
Right.
As you like, there's no feeling quite like coming through Kansas and being like, oh, there's a hill. That's unusual.
Right.
And then you realize, no, that's not a hill. That's the top of a 5,000-foot mountain peak that is literally represents the divide between water flowing east and water flowing west from that point.
And let me also say, if you're nervous because you've got teenagers and they're totally addicted to screens that they're not going to look up, you don't get a very good cell reception for a good portion of that drive.
Take them through the Eastern Sierras.
Yeah, no, you'll
Shit
get
don't
nothing.
work.
So they're just sitting there, just looking out the window. I also kept Rand McNally Road Atlas in the seat, so I made each of the boys do navigation for me. I could have used Waze and just gone, but I made them actively navigate using phones when they had signals, but also double checking against the maps because there's a situational awareness of the terrain around you that a physical map gives you that still the Google Maps can't really do it on a phone.
And Waze actually kind of sucks for a really long drive.
Yeah.
So when I was in San Francisco, if you put my destination in Portland in, it's completely choice paralyzed as it's working through the flowchart of different routes and trying to figure out which way is fastest. And then it has to pull down all it's
exhausting.
It's not good.
Yeah.
It isn't a great experience. It freezes for like 5 minutes.
And the reason I ask if you documented it is because that trip across country, that 10-day trip or however long it usually takes, that is the right amount of time. You see enough different things that when people used to do it in the 20th century and they shot it with film, you get this amazing story.
Right.
That you have a whole beginning, middle, end, and you can't get that any type of other trip.
Well, I kept on one of the main pictures I kept taking was I would hand my camera and have one of the boys hold the camera right up to the dashboard and just look at the road. Mm-hmm. And that view is so similar and yet changes so radically in so many ways. And we went through wildfires, so we saw terrifying skies, and we talked about, my sons started to ask questions about like, why do the clouds have flat bottoms? And we talked about thermal layers and how air is liquid. And it's like, you actually start to understand that when you have enough time to contemplate and look at that.
Well, and the thing is, when you're driving, first off, the windshield of the car kind of frames the world for you when you're on that kind of a long road trip, and it becomes a static part of your environment. And then everything else is framed around it. So when you're driving through the Rockies or the Eastern Sierras, and you're in a giant valley, and there's 3,000-4,000 foot mountains on either side of you, the world feels a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
And then you get to New Mexico or Kansas, and you've never seen sky that's as big as the sky in the Midwest, where it's flat.
My dad grew up in Texas and really spent his whole life just so in love with what he called miles and miles of nothing but miles and miles.
Yeah.
He said the movie, there's a wonderful movie starring Robert Duvall and Tess Harper called Tender Mercies, which is one of my family's favorite movies. And he said that movie communicates how beautiful that giant sky really is.
The first time I drove across the country was with a friend of mine from college, and we were bringing his car back from Arizona to Tennessee. We're having fun in Phoenix, so we dilly-dallied leaving, put it off, had a crippling hangover, the normal stuff, and ended up with 36 hours to get back, which for a 2,400-mile drive or whatever it was, 1,900-mile drive, was aggressive even for 23-year-olds. So we ended up driving and taking turns driving and just drove straight through.
Wow.
Which I wouldn't recommend. It's not a good way to do that.
No.
But I took pictures the entire way, and I took pictures with my old Nikon film camera, which led to some funny things like him waking up in the back seat with me hanging my head out the window and my knee on the steering wheel, doing irresponsible things, taking wide angle shots of like multiple rows of cloud banks. But I guess my point is, on a trip of that length, you're going to see amazing things.
Yeah,
it's guaranteed.
So what's interesting to me is, as we get to self-driving cars, how important is the actual driving to the road trip?
I don't think at all.
Oh, no, so this is another thing I had a lot of time to contemplate, because so many of our infrastructure problems, look, in 1900, the biggest problem New York was facing was horse manure. It was feet deep in many places. And the idea we got from cartoons of the man laying down his coat so a woman could step off the curb, that was real because you had literally mounds of shit everywhere. And it was considered an intractable problem. No one knew how to solve the multiple tons of crap on the roads
real
every
shitty
day.
situation.
And the automobile got rid of it overnight.
Right.
The automobile solved this problem. It brought all sorts of new problems, but got rid of that problem. And honestly, I think, because I've taken the train across the country.
Yeah.
And the most beautiful thing about taking the train across the country, and we mirrored some of the trip that I took.
Did you do Empire Builder from Seattle to Minnesota?
No. We did the California Zephyr from San
through-
Francisco to Chicago,
Okay, through
stopped in
Colorado.
Aspen.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that the view out the window of a train is most of the time hasn't changed since they laid those tracks in the mid 19th century.
Well, and it's usually you're often going through such desolate parts of the country. It's not like you're paralleling the freeway the entire way.
No, but again, still on the freeway, you're still looking at all this farmland. Most of the drive is really the nuts and bolts of America that you're driving through. And I think that when you have an autonomous car, it'll still be. Look, there's going to be plenty of people who will sleep the whole way there, but I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's going to inhibit the ability to enjoy how beautiful this country
And the
is as you move
attention,
across.
like there's a different type of engagement. But
Totally.
Yeah, I'm curious. I would love to do.
So I want to take all the
cross-country
pictures
drive.
that we took. The boys and I both talked about this. Get them from their phones and mine, and put them all together in a book for the three of us.
Oh, that's
to
awesome.
To have as a memento.
I was going to ask. This is your boys are about to finish high school.
Yep.
Or midway through high school. This is. I remember the trips that I took with my parents at that age with great fondness now because they kind of represented the end of my childhood in a lot of ways and the beginning of adulthood because I was able to help drive and I was able to help make decisions about what we were doing and all that stuff.
Well,
and
yeah.
I have to imagine that this was a little bittersweet.
I said it. It was all sweet. I mean, it's intense to watch your kids. I got back last night and I turned to my wife after a few hours and I was like, right, thing one isn't here. He's now like look, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty sure my kids are going to come back and live with me for periods of time, but he's off now for a couple of years and that's an intense thing. And when we separated in Detroit, I sat down with the boys and I said, look, I want to explain this key thing is that life is full of artificial chapter headings. Birthdays and anniversaries. My wife and I don't pay a lot of attention to those. It's like if we have something beautiful for the other one and it corresponds with a birthday, then that happens. But it's not like we're like, oh, got to get an anniversary present. It's we don't put a lot of stock in that. And I'm not begrudging anyone who does, but I think of those as artificial chapter headings. It's just a day.
Yeah.
But I said by making this trip, we put a real chapter heading on this key separation, right? This isn't just one of my boys leaving home. It's the twins also being separated for the first time. And that's going to be intense for both of them and liberating and all of those things. It was a very emotional and really like I just had the best time possible. It was so much fun. They were delightful to travel with. They were both excellent navigators. We got in some fights, just as you would.
Yeah, of course.
We ate some great food. We ate some absolutely terrible food. We ate in some roadside place near Devil's Tower where I think there was 6 people eating in the restaurant, and it took me 20 minutes to find a waitress and get my check.
They were just enjoying having you there, Adam.
Yeah, I was moving on island time.
Yeah.
And then I ended up in Toronto hanging out with my friends on The Expanse, the sci-fi
cool.
show whose panel I did at Comic-Con.
Oh, awesome.
And that's also going to show up untested later on. I don't want to spoil anything, but I just had the best time. So not only is that we did a podcast about The Expanse. We had watched episodes 1 through 4. The thing I'm here to tell you is that episodes 5 through
12 or something? I don't know.
12 or 10? I think it's 13. I think it's 13. It might be 10. Anyway.
The rest of the season.
The special effects and the acting and the camaraderie and the ensemble only gets better.
Well, the stuff that we watched and talked about on the show basically gets you through the prologue for all intents and purposes.
Right. It gets you to where things are actually start to happen.
Introduces characters, sets the stage, yada, yada.
Well, so the show only gets better all the way through the whole first season. And, I was asking the producers at the Comic-Con panel, like, you guys are already used half your budget halfway through how are the effects getting better? Because you're right? So it's all because of the dedication of the crew, and like I'm just going to gush about it for months because I've rarely been on a set where every single person from the painter to the showrunner was having the time of their lives and
so cool.
really enjoying working with each other. And they've got like 4 huge sound stages and giant 3-story sets and spaceships and ice tunnels and all sorts of amazing stuff. Yeah, it was great.
I can't. I have not had a lot of time to watch TV. I can't wait to watch where it goes from where it ended.
Yeah, you can. It's awesome. I saw some sneak previews and stuff.
I think that's as good.
Yeah,
Have you done anything interesting since you got married?
We'll talk about that next week, maybe. Yeah, we'll talk about next week.
Norm's been on an epic. Just do a tease.
All of us have been traveling.
You're going to talk about
one
this.
little
I think
tease.
you have the cool one.
It came back 18 days from the high Arctic with Joey.
From top of the world.
Top of the world.
Did you get to the North Pole?
Did not get to the North Pole. This wasn't the specific trip there, but at one point, the last tease I'll say is at one point we sat down and thought about it, and basically, I guess there are fewer than 100 people north of us in the world out of 7 billion. So that's
was significant because on the
Wow.
South Pole, there's like 10,000 people.
Yeah.
Right on the South
Well,
Pole.
only during the summer though.
Right.
In the winter, it's like 100.
Right.
And we
And
all
maybe
see
by
how
the
that
end,
ends
maybe
up.
by the end of the winter, 98.
So stay tuned.
What did you see Aurora Borealis?
No.
No.
It's the wrong time of year, right?
Summer, so
So it's light all the
light
time.
all the time.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
That's Well, never mind. Wasted trip, I guess.
so many regrets.
Are we going to talk about it? Are you going to talk about it here, or
We'll
this is
talk
only
about
a
it
test,
here
or maybe
next
both?
time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
We'll see you guys next week. Thank you all for watching.
I look forward to reading your road trip, your teenage road trip comments.
Yeah.
In the
Yes.
comments, I hear this family stories.
I want to hear. I want to hear about the significant ones. Like maybe next week, Norm.
Real chapter headings.
Norm and I had a trip. The last trip back from Vegas that we took when we drove from CS the year actually that Tested got sold. I was driving. We got up at 4:00 in the morning so we could do it in one shot.
Love that.
And it was Norm and Gary.
Got up at 4:00 in the morning. You mean stayed up all night?
Well, you stayed up all night because you're insane. But you and Gary and Wes, I think,
Yep.
and I were in the car, and you and Wes were asleep in the back, and Gary was laying down in the bench, just DJing music the whole way. And he had just told us that his wife was pregnant. And it was one of those. It was one of those ones like this is a. Like change is coming, right?
It really, it's
can
that
tell.
those long periods of time really do sort of, again, it's a real chapter heading. You remember so many details, and they are reminiscent of a time. Actually, I know we're wrapping it up, but I just also wanted to point out, my son's almost exclusively DJ'd our entire trip.
It's amazing having that as a
And they love some great old time rock and roll. We're listening to Jimi Hendrix. We're listening to Billy Joel. We're listening to that kind of stuff. And then J. Cole and Chance the Rapper. And let me just say, Chance the Rapper is like my new obsession. Sunday Candy and Blessings and the first song on Life of Pablo, Kanye's new album, Ultralight Beam, is such a bloody
lovely, isn't it?
masterpiece.
Yeah.
It's ringing through my head ever since.
I heard Samus at XOXO this weekend. She did a little performance during her talk. It's unbelievable, and I listened to all of her albums on the way back and was just blown away. I'll play. Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyway.
Yeah, I want to hear.
Okay.
All right.
See you guys
that's
next
good.
week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks again to Autodesk Graphic for sponsoring today's episode. Graphic is a full-featured app for making icons, illustrations, UI and UX, or anything else you'd need out of a professional vector design app. It's available for your Mac, phone, and iPad, so you can design without compromise on the go. It's the vector design app you've been waiting for your iPad Pro and Apple Pencil. Visit graphic.com to learn more about Autodesk Graphic, or just find it in the App Store. We'll see you next week.